1. We start this recording. The recording is recording.
Welcome. Hey, Nimai.
I'm. All right, let's try this.
Let's do it.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Nimai Hedemark, and today I am joined by my brother Abhimanyu Yogi here at his tiny temple, where he is teaching how to make everyone's home, or how to make your home, a tiny temple. And on that theme, and it's at the same time in the vein of Jyotish, we are going to be discussing today the 4 pillars of Dharma, how to uphold your life. It relates to the Kendra of the Lagna chart. So without...
So just in case, I am really pleased to have Nimai here, Nimai Nishringapali, here to teach about this principle. It's really important that our spirituality is based on some really fundamental foundations, and it's not just sentimentality or wishful thinking or belief systems, that we actually have a reason and a deep understanding of the nature of reality that informs the way we choose to live. So get right into it, Nimai.
I would also like to say that my brother has been for myself, he's a great soundboard, somebody to run ideas off of, because he's so well versed and he's very well studied in not only Vedic philosophy, but he's well versed in Sanatana Dharma in general. So that's Veda, Buddhism, Jainism, and I would even go so far as to say he's well studied in Sufi Dharma as well.
Just a little touch of an understanding of each of these traditions, and a deep understanding of one tradition is enough to see the similar threads and enough to get an awareness of those traditions. So I think that because we're Gaudiya Vaishnavas, or at least we grew up practicing Gaudiya Dharma, that's going to be the area where I feel the most well-versed and understood. And then next from that, I think Tantra is a subject matter. Like proper Indian and Buddhist Tantra is a subject matter that I really found interesting, as it connects to yoga and spirituality in general in Indian religions. All of them share a common thread with those two things, Tantra and yoga.
All right.
We digress.
So here we go. I will share my presentation. Now, before we get started, as always, when we are talking about Veda, we're going to go into something deep. We're always going to start in tradition. We are always going to start with our Guru Mantra. So we will chant our Guru Mantra 12 times. Om Gurave Namah. 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 I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual masters and to my teachers. I offer my respect to Vishti, my Jyotish Guru, unto Indradumya Swami, my Diksha Guru, unto my Shiksha Gurus, and to anyone, including my mother and father, who have imparted knowledge and wisdom to me.
Especially our mother and father.
So, upholding your life, the 4 pillars of Dharma, right? In Jyotish, we are introduced to the 12 houses starting from the Lagna. And we learn about the planets, we learn about how what each of the houses do. And over time, the whole thing can kind of become more and more confusing. You have so much information that you are processing, that you're trying to understand, that you're making sense of, to make some kind of a prediction or an assessment. So at some point in time, you have to develop a hierarchy of ideas. And one of the most important hierarchy of ideas are what is more important and what's less important, right? So that is the hierarchy. Where are the significant places?
Yeah.
And the most significant places we learn are what's called or referred to as the Lagna Kendra, the Kendra Bhavas.
So like this is like the spiritual version of the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So
Yeah.
this is like the spiritual hierarchy of needs or supporting pillars of life.
Exactly. So in the first thing you're going to learn is you generally learn about the tripod of life. You hear about the sun, moon, and the Lagna or the Lagna Lord. And so this is a similar idea that there are these 4 houses that are acting as the pillars of your life. And they're called the Kendra Bhavas. They are the, well, let me put a little pointer here so it makes some sense. You can see that, Abhi?
Yep.
So just in case anybody is unsure, we're looking at the East Indian chart style. I will post a link to a video I made on how to distinguish and use the different Vedic chart styles. But in short, we're going to be the signs are fixed and they move in this direction. So with the Lagna here, this is first house.
So the signs move in a counterclockwise direction.
The houses move in a
move from a counterclockwise direction from the north.
Well,
direction,
if from wherever is the Lagna is placed. So if you, depending on the ascendant, but that's not important. We're assuming the Lagna is here in Aries. Okay. So these 4 houses then become the Lagna, the 4th house, the 7th house, and the 10th house.
Okay.
And what's so very important about these houses is that all of these are places wherein you are directly engaging with. Okay. This is very much about you. Lagna is your body, right? Here on this left side, we've made a little, so the first house is about self. It's about your sense of self. It's about all the things that we could label as self, right? And especially your body and your conscious intellect. You are very much the Lagna and the Lagna Lord.
It's sort of like the position of how you feel like you're in your head. Like that's the sense of self in your body. You're like situated up here and you feel, or in the heart, but like often people feel like you're riding around up here.
Yeah.
And so the Lagna is sort of like that position or that place where the self resides, where the sense of self resides, where the body
and it's not
is,
so much it's more even than the sense of self. It's this, if we take the self to be the perceiver, right? So one of the things, like when you see Aries as the natural Lagna, the symbol is a ram. So Agni is riding on the ram. This Agni is that fire. That fire principle is perception itself. The consciousness itself. Right? So it's like the seat. You think of Lagna as the seat of fire. It's the seat of fire, the witness, right?
Right.
And then becomes layer and layer. So like the body is also the seat of the fire, right? With the same concept. Then we have the 4th house. This is your sense of, this is from where your sense of security and your sense of safety. Your mother is connected to this, although there's the other person connected to this, but this is very much about you, your private space, your inner space.
This is kind of a lunar house.
Yes, this is naturally Cancer, so this is a lunar house.
Side, so it's,
and it's about how you are achieving contentment or satisfaction, what you're finding peace in, how are you finding comfort. Okay, 4th house. Then 7th house has to do with the interactions with others, because to pursue a desire, the highest manifestation of this is pursuing the opposite sex, but it's how or what is desirable to you. And this forces you to interact with others, right? We think about relationships coming from the 7th house, partnerships of all kinds, but it's very much especially in the Rashi chart, is very much about what you find desirable.
Right.
Okay. Then the 10th house is how you are interacting with the world.
So
how
7th was that you are, and then 10th is that how you do.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's at the heart of that, right? How you interact with the world. And we can take these 1, 4, 7, 10 principles, and we could move them around. Like we could think of the 4th house as the self of the 4th house. Then the interactions, we see the interactions with other, your partner, your loving partnership becomes the, like you say, your home is where your heart is, right? And wherever your significant other is home, right? It's the heart of the matter, right? And in the same way, then the lagna becomes how you're doing this. How are you using your consciousness? How are you using your perception? How are you perceiving things? Becomes how are you actually doing this heart matter, right? So we can shift the concepts. We can keep the same concepts, and we can move them around at any point in time,
depending on where the lagna is.
Yeah, but the take home, the most important thing that we are recognizing is that when you are actually looking at the chart, these 4 houses become the most important ones. These 4 become the most significant. When you have problems in the Kendra, no matter what, you can have a great 11th house. People, 11th house is great. Oh, it's your income. Or 2nd house, people are very interested in wealth, right? Or 9th house, your bhagyas, all nice. But the experience of life when the Kendra falls is more troublesome, right?
Right, we digress.
So we notice that in this picture, I have a picture of the Muladhara. This is what the Muladhara, this is the yantra of the Muladhara chakra. And this yantra, yeah, the yantra of the Muladhara is essentially the concept that we are addressing here. This is Bhuloka, or at the level of Bhu, of how you are supporting your needs of your life. And this is a Muladhara concept. So these 4 petals of the Muladhara, they map very nicely to the 4 Kendra houses of the Rashi chart.
So interesting that we would derive from this basic understanding, we would derive all the important understanding we would need to want to practice something like Vaidhi Bhakti Sadhana.
Yes.
Following discipline and rules of daily activity regarding.
So you're actually preempting me, because where we're going in this, we're headed in that direction.
Let's go.
So Dharma, we've noticed that we have these 4 houses, that they're the 4 pillars of life. They're upholding your life. And this very much is the root of we're touching on the concept of Dharma. When we hear this word, it's kind of a buzzword, Dharma, right? And it's used a lot, and often not with a lot of recognition of really what it means.
Right.
And it is given a religious connotation that sometimes people who are in the process of sort of rejecting dogmatic oppression feel the need to sort of break through any of these ideas of some kind of Dharma.
Well, but people swinging between Dharma, Adharma, and that's kind of the natural human flow.
So Dharma comes from the Sanskrit root dri, to hold. And it's that which upholds or supports. So we have levels of Dharma. The most fundamental level of Dharma is it's supposed to uphold your life. It's in a natural order. So it's what will allow you to survive. This is Dharma. Okay. The sun being the utmost symbol of that the sun rises every day and is giving life to everyone, right? And the fundamental at the base level is that which allows you or will facilitate you to eat.
Yeah, okay.
And that which will facilitate you to eat not only today, right?
Yeah.
But you'll also be putting in a position where you can eat tomorrow, and then tomorrow, and the further forward that goes, the more in tune with a natural Dharma that is.
Right.
Right? This is the fundamental.
Okay.
Now, we have temporary dharmas, right? And you have Sanatana Dharma. So we have the Dharma of like basic level. I got to survive today. I have to, right? So then we have dharmas for the individuals. Of Mahabharata, whole Mahabharata is about what is Dharma, what's the Dharma of this situation, what should I do, right? what do I do?
Mm.
And a very important idea is that there are certain dharmas that are temporary and certain dharmas that hold over time.
Mm-hmm.
And we should be able to very easily recognize those dharmas which are really uphold in a significant way.
Right.
And they are given a greater priority on the hierarchy of what's important and how much it holds. Does it hold for you, or does it hold for your society? Does it hold for your whole people? And ultimately, does it uphold your soul? Like Krishna has this verse, and there's a verse in Ishopanishad which says the killer of the soul, right? The hanyate hanyamane sharira, the killer of the soul, whoever he may be, falls in the darkest reaches of Neshits, right? When the Muladhara falls, it means you've gone below Boo. You're falling into suffering. You're going into the talas, right?
Yeah.
So we have, just like there are 4 kendras, we have 4 primary pillars of dharma.
Right. Let's go.
So these 4 pillars of dharma, first is satya, upholding and accommodating the truth.
And this is like, right now we can see what the consequence of this pillar being lost is.
Absolutely.
It's an unbelievable thing when the truth becomes subverted and concealed, and we find this place
or even that the idea that there is a truth.
Yes,
that's
the biggest level of subversion that we call Mayavad.
Yeah. So then the second pillar of dharma is called saucha, cleanliness. The cleanliness of body and mind, and ultimately the cleanliness of your spirit, right?
Yeah.
Then the third pillar of dharma is called ahimsa.
Mm-hmm.
And this should be married to karuna. Like we could have ahimsa / karuna, would make sense.
Right.
And generally we know of ahimsa as non-violence or mercy, but we have to make sure we understand that ahimsa means not going beyond the necessary violence.
Right. It's actually a part of justice. It's a dharma pillar that is meant to limit the intensity of justice dealt and try to find the most compassionate and non-violent way. So it's a very important thing to tie mercy and karuna together, compassion and non-violence.
The idea is that it's almost impossible to move through life without causing some violence.
Yeah.
Right. That the natural order of the material nature is that one living entity becomes the food of another living entity. Yeah. Right. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to always act. This pillar of dharma is dependent on the idea of mercy and compassion, and that you are acting from a place where you're trying to do the minimum necessary violence, harm to others, or to yourself. Because ultimately, in the greatest scheme of things, harm to others is not different than harm to yourself.
Yes.
And the last is the dharma of tapasya, austerity. This tapasya is the dedication to an accomplishment. It's the dedication to achieving your desired goal. It's the sacrifice that is required to accomplish that. It's you could say, it's
self-refinement.
A self-refinement, but it's also sacrificing a small pleasure or convenience or a comfort in order to achieve a greater goal. This is tapasya. Now, in my previous video about faith, I pointed out how the 4 kendras map to a deeper qualities of the soul: buddhi, shuddhi, vriddhi, and siddhi. Buddhi being that part of your self-nature which is able to pierce through and recognize itself. Sometimes this is translated as intelligence, but it's more refined than your conscious thinking. Shuddhi is the purity of the self. It is how the self is completely like the air. It's on the one hand nothing and yet holds everything. This is the shuddhi. Mm-hmm. And vriddhi is how the Brahman is naturally always expanding. Mm-hmm. So we have this part of our nature that we are always seeking expansion.
Vriddhis are like accomplishments.
We seek expansion through creating a family, by uniting with the opposite sex,
Right.
having children, developing wealth, and so on and so forth. It is with this natural inclination towards vriddhi.
Okay.
And siddhi is this natural accomplishment. The soul's nature is in of itself full of siddhi, perfection.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I was just thinking about the two words as siddhi being, because we look at this in regards to siddhi and riddhi being the consorts of
Ganesh.
So siddhis are like they're the masteries of one's of one's being. Siddhi means you perfect yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas vriddhis seem to be like what is possible through that perfection. After one is perfect, you're
Yes,
able to accomplish.
because what
these.
you'll notice is, again, from siddhi, vriddhi is the 10th.
Yeah. This is what you're accomplishing with your
Yeah.
siddhi.
With your siddhi,
Yes.
it's vriddhi.
Yes.
And
So it's by buddhi you come to shuddhi, by shuddhi you come to siddhi, by siddhi you come to vriddhi.
yes,
Okay.
it goes in that order.
Nice.
And we see how these 4 pillars of Dharma naturally are directing one. By upholding these 4 pillars of Dharma, you're in line with the nature of the soul, right? Satyam is supporting buddhi.
Mhm.
Saucha is supporting shuddhi, purity, right?
Mhm.
The cleanliness supports purity,
Yes.
right? Ahimsa supports a vriddhi that doesn't damn you.
That's a good vriddhi.
Yes.
Mhm.
Otherwise, Krishna, he calls this the asura bhava, this mentality that
Right.
you can expand through violence,
Right.
by any means,
Right.
right? Like in the chapter in Bhagavad Gita that says, "So much wealth I have today, and so much wealth I will conquer my enemies, and so much more wealth I have," right? And likewise, how can you possibly have siddhi without tapasya, right? So we have this idea, you touched on this idea of yama and niyama, things you should do, things you shouldn't do, right? And these are 3rd and 9th house concepts. You get the instructions from the wisdom of the gurus here in whoops, I've done it in the reverse order in this little thing, but we're just gonna, crap.
Just explain it.
So we have the 3rd house and the 9th house. The 9th house is where the wisdom of the sages is. It's where you look to the past, your history, and you look to your elders for who are the holders of that history. They have the Puranas, right? Yeah. They've been there, they've done that. And in doing so, they know things, and they're able to guide you. They give you instructions, and these instructions are a 3rd house concept.
Right.
They're the things on which you have to act on. It's your job. Your self-effort does it. They can give you all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't do anything about it, it doesn't turn into anything, right? So if we take this idea and we go from each house, we see the 3rd house therefrom, and we're going to see the, you could say, yama, right? What you should do. Right? And to extent the niyama, in a sense, of what you shouldn't do, are both held in those houses.
That's cool.
So for satyam, it has to do with your action. You have to act in accordance with satyam, and you have to speak in accordance with satyam. Right? Then for saucha, the 3rd house,
well, you
from
could
there.
say, going back, you could just say that speech and action must be congruent.
Otherwise, how is it satyam?
It can't be satyam.
Right? So then from saucha, we have this, it goes to 3rd from there from is the 6th house. This is the house of your natural enemies, and especially your internal enemies. Right. You have to fight. You have to combat.
Sit here.
The Sadrupus sit here. Lust, anger, greed, delusion, jealousy, and pride, right? So if you're not fighting those, you're not actually doing the yama niyama of saucha, right? Then for ahimsa, you have to go to the 9th. This is a very interesting one. You have to actually learn wisdom, because you have to actually have a moral fiber. How are you, if you don't develop higher principles of realization and think on a more elevated level, if you don't start like ascending in your thinking process, then how are you going to recognize that harming another living entity is actually harmful to your own self? Right?
You also don't, you know, until you have those, that darshan of the soul, really, to understand what life is, to understanding the suffering of the living entity, and actually feel that empathy, come to that place of being able to be empathetic with any living entity, because one understands through experience that you are exactly like any other living entity. You feel pain, they feel pain, you have needs, They have needs, you have desires, they have desires, you have demons, they have demons.
Right.
So without this higher education, you always imagine that every individual is somehow a different kind of individual with a different kind of experiential possibility or framework, or you don't see the sameness, you can't empathize.
Now, from tapasya then becomes renunciation, right? How can you do tapasya without that process of negating the senses, overcoming your applying yourself to something difficult?
Well, let's discuss renunciation real quick from the perspective of Falgu Vairagya. Falgu Vairagya means Marketa Vairagya, like the monkey renounces things. He appears very renounced. And then Yukta Vairagya, renunciation in the service of Krishna, meaning that anything can be used in Krishna's service.
So in this context of tapasya, for upholding your life, it's like, we can do this very simple. Like anyone who's ever gone to a life coach regards to like manifesting your, anybody who's actually been successful says by hard work, you could be successful.
Yes,
this is like the American motto, that if you work really hard and you apply yourself, then you will be successful. This is the tapasya. And it requires you to pay your dues. Like even say this in various fields. Oh, you have to pay your dues, right? This is a 12th house concept. Renunciation. Now, notice how
the desire for the fruits of your activity.
Notice how when you map this out, that we've done a third house to everything, but they're also the 9th house from somewhere.
Right. Okay. So that means renunciation is 9th from Saucha.
You have to give up something in order to get the wisdom about being able to defeat.
Oh, that attachment to cleanliness.
No, it's attachments. It's ultimately attachments to everything.
Well, I mean, when it comes to
it's actually the ultimate renunciation, because real saucha, if we were going to talk about purity, really.
Well, that's what I was talking about, renouncing the dualities of pure and impure as being the higher renunciation.
So the highest, like here is where Jupiter is in his, Ketu is in his place of work, Jupiter is in his place of work, and Venus gets its exaltation, right? This Pisces.
Okay.
This is the house of moksha, right? So this is where you actually let go of the concept that I'm an independent existing being.
Right.
That I, Nimai Das, exist on my own accord, independent of every other being.
Right.
And in doing so, I become Saucha. I have given up
the real,
so this gets to Shuddhi. We get to reaching Shuddhi. So now when we talk about these in your life, even on the simplest level, clean your house. Be clean. It is going to uphold your well-being.
Yeah, you're going to have a
better
health.
From the simplest things, like we can get to very esoteric ideas of what Saucha is, but from your most fundamental, be clean all the time. If you're not clean, disease becomes rampant. Previous times, we take this for granted, but if you weren't clean, you don't be clean with your food, you don't be clean with where you live, then you're going to become diseased.
Yeah, in other words.
And where's that disease going to come from?
Enemies.
Right, because this is actually diseases.
Yeah.
6 houses where diseases enter in.
Attract enemies.
Right, so
being unclean.
And the third from there.
Various kinds of.
And the third from there, how they act, is death, the 8th house.
Yeah, wow.
Right?
Wow, look, you can see it all in reverse.
Everything.
That's so cool.
Everything. So in the same way, if we go to Ahimsa, the 9th house is over here in the 3rd. This is where your instructions from your guru actually are.
This is an interesting point. How to not cause violence through instruction. How to not cause violence via preaching or teaching the Dharma. It has to be taught without coercion, without manipulation, from a place of honesty.
That's a very subtle.
This is a very important part of the non-violence.
Krishna calls it austerity of speech.
Austerity of speech. Yeah, beautiful.
So we have this story about Maharaj Parikshit, and it regards these 4 pillars of Dharma, and it's in regards to the 4 pillars of Dharma now. And Parikshit Maharaj was the emperor of the known world. And he started to notice that the symptoms of a dharma were creeping into his society.
Adharma meaning the opposite of dharma,
Yeah.
or irreligion, or that which does not support, which tears down. In other words, something like communism.
Well, well, you could say that, but I'm not gonna interject anything. I think we're gonna keep it very straight. So Parikshit Maharaj, he noticed that he was starting to see these symptoms. And what are these symptoms? Covetousness, jealousy, envy, greed, non-mercy, like ruthlessness, carelessness.
Right.
These were starting to appear. He's seeing symptoms and he's going, what is going on? What's something,
Right.
This is wrong. So on one day, he mounts his chariot and he heads out and he comes upon a horrible scene. He sees that a Shudra, black as coal. Now, when I say black, he could tell that this is not, I'm not talking about a black person like we're not talking about like African American, but a person who was black, dressed as a king, was mercilessly beating a bull. And beside this bull was a cow who was weeping. And the bull he was only standing on one leg, and 3 legs had already been so bashed that he's just on the ground. And this dark personality is mercilessly beating this bull. Parikshit Maharaj becomes enraged. What? And he sees, oh, this is the representation of exactly what I see here before me. Kali, the personification of the 4th yuga, the personification of adharma, the blackness of
I guess in like Vedic theology or Vedic cosmology and mythology, like he's the closest thing that you could relate to something like a Satan kind of character, the one that actually tries to influence human beings away from God and towards, Pleasure Island, the stupid Pinocchio place where all men become jackasses and demons.
You could say that.
But even Kali, the best way to understand Kali, it's not Kali because Kali is a goddess who is actually not an evil goddess, but is a goddess
manifestation of time. When you say Kali, you're talking about time, and Kali, you're talking about blackness.
Yeah.
So he comes upon him, and he hears the conversation between Bhumi or perceives the conversation between Bhumi and Dharma. The bull is Dharma, and Bhumi is Mother Earth. She's there beside Dharma. Who's her? You think about the allegory that's being presented here, that the bull is her husband, right?
The
Dharma, the custodian, the protector,
Dharma.
and the
husband of the earth.
Consort of the earth is Dharma.
Wow.
And so Parikshit, he obviously challenges
the offense
Kali.
the bull. Yeah.
And he says, you're not allowed I'm banishing you. You can't reside here. You're not allowed to be here. I banish you. And Kali says, but you're the emperor of the world, but I'm also your subject. I got to live somewhere. Everyone has to be able to live. That's a law of nature. Everyone is live and let live. So where do I get to reside? So Parikshit says, anywhere where there is violence to animals, right? Where they're being mercilessly killed, you can reside there. Anywhere where there is an interaction of men and women that is completely casual without any consideration of a future, that you can reside there. Then he says, anywhere where wine is being consumed and people are becoming deluded by that intoxication, that mada, you can live there. And anywhere where people are engaging in gambling, you can live there.
There's a 5th one. He actually adds,
and then he says,
gold.
Yes, yes. And the last place that you can reside is because it's a place of greed. It's where people hoard gold. And in this way, he gave a place for Kali to reside.
Yeah.
So from this, we get our yamas and our niyamas,
Wow.
because Dharma, these four legs are his four legs, these four pillars of Dharma. And in this last leg is Satya. He was able to stand on Satya. So in Kali Yuga, Satya is the leg that's easily available to you. And then Parikshit Maharaj, after chasing away Kali, he was able to lift up Dharma and reestablish him on his four legs. So Krishna, he gives a very interesting instruction. With this story in mind, he gives very interesting instructions to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. That we have these four pillars, and of these four pillars, Satya is available to us. The other three are very compromised. It's very easy to understand this in Kali Yuga. Cleanliness, real cleanliness, everything is polluted. Our food is polluted by so many activities. We all get in the car, we put petrol in the car, and what's gone on? What kind of ugra karma has been involved in getting that petrol to your car?
Yeah.
Right.
We
wear shoes, we wear our clothes, and who knows who made it and what kind of duress they've been put through to do that. All our food is mass produced without any consideration, practically speaking, for the environment or for Mother Earth. In this way, everything is contaminated in some way or another. It's very, very, very difficult to try to sit on some cleanliness, some purity, moral standard. Right. In the same way, greed is so rampant. So much is going on. Without any consideration, and no one is really being who is really showing ahimsa. Really. Right. Cows are, I mean, in this day and age, I mean, we kill our own children. Like in cow, so Vriddhi is very compromised for everybody, and nobody can stand on the moral high ground. We don't get to take this moral high ground. And then real tapasya is also few and far between. Right. So Krishna gives a very interesting instruction to Arjuna. He says, Yat karoshi, yat ashnashi, yat juhoshi, dadashi yat. Yat tapasyashi kaunteya tat kurushva mad arpanam. Right? Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. Now, in the English, we see offering twice, and I just want to point out, so we have this word juhoshi. This is the first, whatever you offer or give away. This juhoshi is like a ritualistic offering.
You have three words, we have three verbs there. You have yaj, you have juhoshi, dadasi.
But this juhoshi in particular is the whatever you offer. Juhoshi. Okay. And this is a kind of a ritualistic offering. Okay. This is something you're like,
I think it's gives in that yaj juhoshi. That's the where that offers yaj juhoshi.
Exactly.
In sacrifice.
Yes. Now, this is so what I'm pointing out is there's a very interesting, because we're going to have this other word offering, arpanam. And so whatever you do in your ritualistic, whatever the religiosity, whatever religion, as arpanam.
Right.
So whatever you're doing as good activities, whatever you're offering, your charity, whatever humanitarian activities, this is all in the category of yaj juhoshi.
Right.
You go to the temple and you pay the priest, or you light the candle. These are all yaj juhoshi. This is yaj.
Talking about karma kanda. This is the ritualistic activity of Vedic culture.
Right? But it can be in life in general. It doesn't even have to be Vedic culture. Then this mud arpanam. This arpanam, like we have we know, some of you may know of the puja called tarpanam, where you're standing in the water.
Satisfaction. This is an interesting thing. He's actually saying, it's an interesting that you pointed out that way, because he's saying tat kurushva mad arpanam. Mad arpanam means for my satisfaction.
Yes.
There's actually even, is this translation the most recent translation, or is this an older translation?
This is an older translation, but this is
yeah, he's saying
from
that tarpana means to satisfy. It's libations.
Yeah.
That
So
are
so the other
satisfied.
thing, the other concept that we want to think about this satisfaction is like when you take, so for example, it's like harmony. So if you were to run a scale of notes and you start from sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa, right? And it always wants to resolve back into sa.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take some water from a big body of water, the
Yeah.
water naturally wants to resolve back into this body of water, right? So this arpanam is like the offer it back into satisfaction.
Right.
That you can't cling to it.
Right.
You can't cling to these ideas, these I, me minds. I did this, I did that. You do them, and you offer them back into satisfaction. Into
Krishna's satisfaction.
Exactly. Because Krishna is that totality.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a beautiful thing. Now, when we look at this from the perspective of what we've been talking about so far, these 4 pillars of Dharma, it becomes even more interesting. And we see the subtleties of Jyotish as it's taught in Bhagavad Gita. And you can see the expertise of Krishna.
Wow.
So we have here we go again, the 4 pillars of Dharma, right? And we've already pointed out that of the 4 pillars, the most important pillar is Satyam. This relates to the Lagna, to your intelligence, buddhi. That by upholding Satyam, you can eventually relift and uphold the other 4.
Right.
So Krishna says, whatever you do, oops, why is it not doing it that way? Can I have to click? Is that how it is? Whatever you do. Now, the 3rd house directly impacts the 1st house. It's an Argala concept.
Argala means, translate Argala.
Argala means obstruction or influence. So when you have a house, the 3rd therefrom is a unique Argala. It's an obstruction or a help.
Yeah, okay.
It can go a blessing or a curse. Like it can either obstruct you or not, right? Your self-effort, either you're going to be successful or not.
Right.
You're either going to be able to feed and maintain your life or not through this 3rd house. Whatever you do. Then he says, whatever you offer or give away. Whatever you eat. Sorry, I'm whatever you eat. This is directly the sustainer of the Lagna.
Yeah.
The 2nd house is the sustaining the Lagna. Whatever you eat.
Very interesting, because the potential for you to be truthful and honest
depends on what you eat.
One of the things about people who are able to eat sentient living, fully cognizant sentient living entities, is that they have to ignore the fact that they're
causing harm to another.
Harm and pain, genuinely felt pain that they can perceive.
Yeah.
Not that could be inferred or imposed or guessed. That you can see that an animal suffers when you kill it, whereas you cannot feel or see a plant feeling that pain. So it's easier. It's less ignorance.
Yes.
It's less ignorance. It's
still
ignorance. Eating plants and other things like that still causes karma.
Yeah.
It still causes harm, but you're not willingly, blindly ignoring the fact that you're causing harm. So whatever you eat allows you to be truthful.
Yeah. And then the other part of it is, he says, whatever you offer or give away. Right? And that is the 12th house.
Wow, beautiful.
So you can see here, and then his instructions, and he says, and do that as an offering to me. Now, when he says to me, what are we actually saying? Think about this. He's saying to Satyam.
Truth, yes, of course.
Because he is Param Satyam Dhimahi.
Param Satyam Dhimahi. First verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam.
So he's
on that absolute truth. Param Satyam Dhimahi.
So whatever you offer or give away, whatever austerities you perform. So from an astrological perspective, we see that everything that he's instructing and he's directing Arjuna to do from an astrological perspective all supports Satyam, the Lagna.
Well, because in that whole instance, they were trying to uphold the truth. That was the whole
and especially Arjuna is in a quandary of what to do.
Yeah.
So then he says in the next verse, in this way you'll be freed from your bondage of work and its auspicious and inauspicious results, the dualities, right? We've talked about this 12th house. And with your mind fixed on me, you're in this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me. You will be situated in truth, Satyam. And to those who are, and then later on he says, to those who are constantly devoted in serving me with love, I give them the understanding. Buddhi yogam is the word by which they can come to me. This buddhi is purified. This is the beginning of spiritual life in truth.
One's intelligence is purified.
Purified. Then
by truthfulness.
You can say, now you're approaching Saucha and Ahimsa. And in that process, actually, you've lifted up and you've raised up these 4 Kendra. So this Satyam is also of 2 parts. We have, it's called Tatkalika Satyam and Sarva Satyam. So we have temporary truths.
Right.
And we have
relative truths.
Sarva truth. They're always true.
Oh, okay.
Right? So the Satyam is tied to your Lagna. So the truth, the most fundamental truth that we are supposed to uphold, to acknowledge, to examine, to think about, what does this mean? Is I exist. What am I?
Beautiful.
And this is the beginning of making Ketu in your chart auspicious. This attempt to uphold and accommodate this truth makes Ketu auspicious. And once Ketu is auspicious in your chart, your path to moksha begins. Your path to eternal life, as some may say, or to eternal truth in being as it is begins. And so I hope that this simple idea that you can apply yourself to truth, apply yourself to cleanliness, apply yourself to being kind and merciful to others, both in your action and in your speech, and being kind and applying yourself to your endeavor of whatever it is you're trying to achieve in this regard, all serving your desire to uphold and accommodate truth. These 4 things, everyone likes to talk about various sort of astrological remedies and so on and so forth, but these are the most fundamental remedies for your life. These 4 activities and the avoidance of their corollaries are fundamental to your spiritual life.
Absolutely.
And they will progress you on the path. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Nimai. That was super cool. That was super cool. I would like to say thank you to everybody who watched, and thank you to Nimai. And yeah, I have a few
questions or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean,
we can go back.
We can go back for a second just to kind of.
Yep.
When
is there?
What was the one?
Particular slide that you want me to go to?
Well, I just wanted to, because we actually have an opportunity here to talk about tapasya in a way that's meaningful, which we haven't yet quite been able to touch on.
Okay.
And tapasya, for like, we can talk about tapasya as a general concept, but we can talk about tapasya from the yogic perspective. And tapasya practically, right, has various kinds of activities that are considered to be tapasyas. But to make it very simple, I wanted to actually, touch on how Kṛṣṇa says that the highest tapasya is japa. Japa is the highest tapasya. Because, and also that when Brahma heard the voice from the sky, when Brahma first comes into cognizance, right, he doesn't know what's going on, and he goes into meditation, and he hears a voice that says, tapa, do tapa. And he actually receives a mantra to perform tapa with. So tapasya, tapa, it has its concept into burning off, burning away. Because the result, like you said, actually of tapasya is full renunciation and moksha, or liberation. And when we look at the word moksha, we understand that we have two syllables there, which is mo, or mind, ma, and ksha, which means to burn, to actually fully kṣobana, to be fully purified.
Right.
So moksha means the burning up, the purification of the mind.
Yeah. So imagine, see that that's the 9th.
Is the engagement.
Yes.
In the purification of the mind, in the burning away of all the vasanas, all the samskaras, all the vrittis that cause the mind to continually move in its various patterns and cycles that keep you locked in your impure mental conceptions of yourself. So then, that gives us an opportunity to look at tapasya and the effect of tapasya, that when we do japa, actually what happens is our vachika becomes purified. So then we can also speak truthfully. There's that connection again, coming back all full circle.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to add in something practical in terms of how to perform tapasya in the modern world. Vaishnavas do mantra japa every day. We also fast.
Yep.
Fasting is a very good tapasya. Fasting on Ekadasi. If you can fast fully, that is great. If you can fast with just water, that's good too. If you can fast only on fruits and milk products and roots, that's great. But we should avoid rice, legumes, beans, grains, all kinds of
the symbols of action.
Those processed foods which require karma, lots of karma to actually be harvested and processed and made. So yoga is tapasya.
Yes.
Yoga itself is tapasya. And so this whole conversation about the importance of truthfulness as it results in actually eventually taking up faithful tapasya that's not based on a misunderstanding or on untruth, but it's actually directed towards truth. It's actually motivated towards truth and by truth. It's an informed kind of tapasya. It's not harming the body. It's not an overindulgence in painful, there's those
self-torture.
Self-torture, they're guilty. They think that by hurting themselves, they can do something, but we don't support that. It's against ahimsa.
Yeah, it's against ahimsa.
So
to cause violence to yourself. So another thing that is important to note is that when Krishna is establishing Arjuna in Satyam here, this first house, this Lagna Kendra, this Aries sign, is the root sign in the Artha or of Dharma. So when we're going to learn next time, we're going to explore the Purusharthas, the way in which man tries to find meaning in his life. We learned that these 4 Kendras, again, map to these Purusharthas.
Beautiful.
And that Dharma, the seat and the root of Dharma in the chart, is this first house,
Lagna.
The Lagna.
So one has to understand one's swadharma, one's actual nature.
Yeah.
If you want to understand your nature, if you understand who you are, it comes with who you are. Comes with what you do.
Yeah.
And so discovering the truth of who you are, you will easily naturally flow into the naturalness of your own dharma.
Yeah.
And the only kind of dharma that's good is one that's honest, one that's real.
Because otherwise it's not situated in Satyam.
Yeah, truth. You can't have a false pretense to performing a particular dharma. Wow.
So I always find these little bits when I discover a little something in Bhagavad Gita. This is my second time approaching Jyotish from a Bhagavad Gita perspective.
I think it's quite brilliant.
That my guru, he's Bhagavad Gita in our lineage, in our tradition, is one of the Jyotish Shastras we accept.
Wow.
And when I find these little snippets and see them, how they actually work, I mean, you put it together and you look at it, how brilliant these Vedic sciences are, that they all very perfectly map to each other.
Wow.
And Jyotish is a very interesting way to explore this when you're seeing it. Thank you so much, Abhi, for taking the time to do this with me.
No
I'm wishing everybody well. May your life be filled with Satyam. May you constantly uphold and have unlimited ability to accommodate that truth, however inconvenient it may be. And next time, we're going to tell the story of Ketu, and you're going to understand this Satyam even further. Thank you so much. Until next time.
Janitai, Haribo, Janitai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
That was pretty cool, right?
You're still recording. You're still recording.
Stop recording. Did I still record?
It
yeah, I'm still recording.